The sky just turned white, and you have 30 seconds before it matters whether you live. That flash on the horizon is not a transformer blowing. It is not lightning. It is a nuclear detonation, and your body just started a countdown you cannot pause. Most survival channels hand you a bunker fantasy. 15 years of freeze-dried food, a steel door, a generator the size of a fridge. You do not have that. Almost nobody does. What you have is a house, maybe a basement, and about 15 minutes to make the decisions that decide whether you see next month. This is not a bunker guide. This is the guide for the rest of us, the ones without a bunker and without a choice. Every step in this video comes from real government emergency protocols and real radiation physics, not guesswork. Here's what happens in the first 15 minutes, the next 48 hours, and the 2 weeks after that. Watch until the end, because the mistake that kills people is not the blast. It is what they do in the next 15 minutes after it. Stick around, because by the end of this, you will know more about surviving this exact scenario than almost anyone standing next to you when it happens. People with real resources built their plan years ago. Hardened shelters, private stockpiles, evacuation routes already mapped out. Government officials have protocols, hardened facilities, and staff trained to execute them without hesitation. You do not have any of that, and you do not need it because the actual physics of survival, distance, shielding, and time work exactly the same for you as they do for anyone in a bunker. The gap between a prepared household and an unprepared one is not money. It is 15 minutes of correct decisions at the start and 2 weeks of discipline after that. That gap is entirely closable, starting right now, with information instead of infrastructure. Rule number 1, the blast does not care about your plans. Your brain will try to do 2 things at once. It will freeze for half a second like a computer choking on an error. Then it will try to make you turn and stare at that beautiful, terrible light on the horizon. Do not look. That flash can burn your retinas in an instant, and depending on distance, that damage can be permanent. Your ancestors survived by being curious. You survive by overriding that instinct on purpose. Close your eyes. Cover your face with your arms. Drop to the ground if you are caught outside. A shockwave is coming behind that light, and it moves fast enough to throw a car like a toy. You have one job in these first minutes. Get inside a real building, not a car. A car is a metal box that does nothing against radiation. Not a tent, not a doorway, not under a tree. A basement is the jackpot. A ground floor room with no windows in a brick or concrete building is good enough. Move away from windows immediately, because glass is about to become a cloud of tiny blades. If you live in a multi-story building, go down, not up. Every floor above you adds more exposure, and every floor of concrete below you blocks more of it. Grab nothing on the way. Not your phone, not your wallet, not your dignity. Move with purpose and get mass between yourself and the sky. The blast is only the opening act. What actually decides who lives is invisible, and it is falling from the sky right now. That is fallout, radioactive dust from everything the fireball vaporized, drifting back down like ash. Before you go deeper into your shelter, you need to decontaminate. Strip your outer layer of clothing the moment you are inside. Shoes stay at the door. Jacket, shirt, pants, anything that touched outside air after the flash. That single step removes up to 90% of the radioactive particles that could be clinging to you. The science is simple. Fallout is dust, and dust sticks to fabric and skin. Remove the dust, remove most of the danger. Wipe exposed skin and hair with a damp cloth. Be thorough, but be quick. Do not shower yet. You need every drop of clean water for drinking over the next 2 weeks, not for a full rinse. Now seal the room. Find the space in your home with the fewest outside walls and no windows. A basement is best. An interior bathroom or closet is a solid second choice. Grab duct tape, plastic sheeting, garbage bags, or wet towels and block every gap. Tape plastic over vents and door frames. Shut off the furnace and the air conditioning. You are not worried about fresh air right now. You are worried about fallout dust finding its way in. Turn on a battery-powered radio the moment your shelter is sealed. Cell towers may already be down, but radio still works, and it is about to become your only link to the outside world. Official broadcasts will tell you when the first wave of fallout has passed, when it is safe to move, and which zones to avoid. You are staying in this room for at least 48 hours, possibly longer depending on how close you are to the blast. The first few hours after detonation carry the heaviest fallout of the entire event, so this is not the moment to peek outside for a better look. Radiation does not care who you voted for or how kind you were to your neighbors. It is just physics, and physics does not negotiate. High-energy particles pass through your body, break chemical bonds, and shred DNA the way a shredder handles paper. Your cells can repair some of that damage. Enough dose and the repair systems fall behind, and that is when people get sick. Here's the piece of good news buried in all of this. Fallout loses about 99% of its danger in roughly 2 weeks. Radioactive decay is exponential, and the nastiest isotopes burn themselves out fast. 7 hours after the blast, radiation levels drop to about 10% of the initial spike. After 2 days, it is down near 1%. After 2 weeks, it is a fraction of a fraction. Time is doing the heavy lifting here, one decay event at a time, but your fate depends heavily on one variable, your distance from ground zero. Picture 3 zones. Zone 1, inside 5 miles, is the inner circle. If you are here, the blast itself may have already been the danger, and radiation outside is measured at levels that make long-term sheltering impossible. If you survived in a solid basement, you stay put for the first 6 to 12 hours while the worst fallout settles. Then you move perpendicular to the wind, never straight downwind, towards Zone 2 or 3 as fast and as safely as you can. Zone 2, 5 to 20 miles out, is the danger belt. Windows shattered, the ground shook, but your structure likely still stands. Fallout is heavy here, and if your shelter holds, you stay inside for 10 to 14 days while the decay curve does its work. You only leave if the structure fails, your water runs out, or a radiation meter confirms it is safe for short trips. Zone 3, 20 miles and beyond, is the long game. You probably never felt the blast directly, but the wind can still carry fallout your way over the following days. Seal your home, monitor the radio, and follow official guidance on how long to stay inside, because in this zone, patience beats panic almost every time. Gamma rays are the main threat riding along inside fallout, and they slice through air like it is not even there. Dense material is what actually stops them, and this is called shielding. Concrete blocks roughly half of the gamma radiation that hits it for every few inches of thickness. Books help, furniture helps, water helps. Canned food stacked in rows helps. Remember the rule of halves as your shortcut. Every time you double your shielding thickness, you cut the radiation dose in half. 1 layer of brick, half the dose. 2 layers, a quarter. 4 layers, a 16th. The math finally works in your favor. Start building immediately. Push heavy furniture against the exterior wall of your shelter room. Stack encyclopedias, textbooks, anything with real mass. Roll your refrigerator into the hallway if you can, because a full fridge is essentially a wall of mobile shielding. If you can safely step outside briefly before the worst fallout arrives, fill garbage bags with dirt or sand. Each bag adds real protection, and a ring of them around your shelter space compounds fast. Sealed water jugs double as shielding while they wait to be your drinking supply. Build your nest in the center of the room, as far from every exterior wall as you can manage, with your shielding stacked in a ring around it. It will not look pretty. It does not need to. Gamma rays do not care about interior design. They care about mass, and you just gave them plenty to push through before they reach you. Your body is roughly 60% water, and every system in it depends on that supply. You can survive nearly 3 weeks without food if you are healthy. You will not make it past 3 or 4 days without water. Plan on 1 gallon per person per day, minimum, for drinking and basic hygiene. 2 weeks of sheltering means 14 gallons per person, so a family of 4 needs somewhere around 56 gallons stored before anything even happens. Any water sealed before the blast is safe because fallout particles cannot pass through glass or plastic. Your water heater alone holds 40 to 50 gallons sitting quietly in a basement or closet, and it is drinkable once you know how to drain it safely. Toilet tank water, not the bowl, is also usable in a pinch since it comes straight from your clean supply line. Open water sources after a blast are a different story. Rivers, lakes, and rainwater collected outside are all contaminated and should be avoided unless the alternative is dying of thirst. If it comes to that, distillation is your escape route. Boiling kills bacteria but does not remove radioactive particles since those stay behind in the pot. Collecting and condensing the steam gives you clean water because the radioactive isotopes do not evaporate the way water does. A pot, a raised cup inside it, and an upside-down lid to catch and funnel the condensation is enough to build a working still with things already in your kitchen. It is slow. It works. Ration what you have, like your life depends on it, because it does. Track how much each person is drinking. Keep the reserve separate from the ration so you are never tempted to dip into tomorrow's supply today. And remember that thirst is a warning sign, not a starting point. So drink on a schedule rather than waiting until your body forces the issue. Every meal from your own storage is one less reason to open that door. Anything sealed before the blast, canned goods, boxed goods, vacuum-sealed packages, is safe to eat once you wipe the outside clean. Fresh produce from a garden that was exposed, and any meat from animals that were outside during the fallout, should be avoided entirely because both absorb radioactive particles fast. Your fridge holds its temperature for about 4 hours once the power dies. Your freezer a little longer if it stays shut, so eat the perishables first. If it is safe to do so, then switch to shelf-stable food for the long stretch ahead. Canned beans, rice, pasta, peanut butter, and dried fruit are the backbone of any real prepper pantry, and most cans stay safe well past their printed date. Ration deliberately. Calculate your total supply, divide it by the number of people sheltering with you, then divide again by the number of days you expect to stay inside. That is your daily limit, and sticking to it is what makes 2 weeks of food actually last 2 weeks. The average adult can function on 1,500 to 2,000 calories a day at minimum, and your body is built by millions of years of evolution to handle exactly this kind of temporary scarcity. Here is the honest truth. Most people do not have this kit ready, and that is exactly why this list matters. A radiation meter is the single most useful tool you can own because it turns an invisible threat into a number you can act on. It tells you when the dose rate outside has actually dropped instead of forcing you to guess. Water comes first on every list, 14 gallons per person for 2 weeks minimum. Food comes second, 2 weeks of shelf-stable calories that you will actually eat, not just whatever was on sale. A battery-powered or hand crank radio keeps you connected to official broadcasts once cell towers and internet are gone. Duct tape, plastic sheeting, and heavy garbage bags seal your shelter room fast and cheap. Soap, wet wipes, and a few dust masks handle decontamination and keep fallout dust out of your lungs. A real first aid kit, stocked with bandages, antiseptic, pain relievers, and any prescription medication you personally depend on, becomes your entire healthcare system once hospitals are unreachable. Flashlights, batteries, and a way to make fire cover you once the grid goes dark. None of this is exotic. Total cost for a full kit typically lands between $300 and $500, which is less than most households spend on takeout in a single month. Store it together in one place, not scattered across the house, so you can grab it in seconds instead of searching for it in a panic. Check the kit once a year, rotate the water, swap expired food, test the batteries, and replace anything you have used. Because a kit that quietly expires in a closet is not actually a plan, it is just a box that used to be one. That single hour of maintenance a year is the difference between a kit that works when the sirens sound and a kit that fails you at the exact moment you finally need it. Physical survival is only half the fight. You are about to spend days, maybe weeks, in a small sealed room with limited supplies and no certainty about what is happening outside. That is a real strain on the mind, and pretending otherwise does not help anyone. Build a routine, even an arbitrary one. Wake at the same time. Eat at set times. Check your shielding, monitor the radio, ration supplies, and give yourself small tasks that create structure where there is none. If you are sheltering with others, talk openly about how everyone is feeling and avoid letting stress turn into conflict, because you all need every bit of emotional energy for the actual survival part. If you are alone, talking out loud to yourself is not a sign anything is wrong. It keeps your mind engaged and your language sharp. Ration your hope the way you ration your water. Do not assume rescue is coming tomorrow, and do not assume everything is permanently destroyed either. Stay focused on the next meal, the next radio check, the next sleep cycle, because thinking too far ahead in either direction wears people down fast. Humans have survived ice ages, plagues, and wars throughout history, and that resilience did not disappear. It is still in you, waiting to be used. There is no dramatic music swell coming to save you, and there is no guarantee attached to any of this. Nuclear war is the worst-case scenario humanity built for itself, and nothing about it is easy. But survival without a bunker is genuinely possible, and it comes down to 3 things working together: distance, shielding, and time. Radioactive decay happens whether you panic or stay calm, so staying calm is simply the smarter move. Knowledge is the tool nobody can take from you, and preparation is the head start almost nobody bothers to build. You now understand more about surviving a nuclear event than the vast majority of people who will ever watch this video, and that gap exists because you chose to learn it before you needed it. Put together a basic kit this week. Water, food, a sealed room, a radio, and a plan everyone in your house actually knows. That decision costs a weekend and a few $100s, and it might be the only thing standing between your family and chaos on the worst day of your life. The bombs do not care about your choice, but your choice absolutely determines your odds. Stay sharp, stay inside when it counts, stay alive. If this video actually changed how you think about that closet full of nothing, tell me the one item you are buying this week in the comments. because the people who say it out loud are the ones who actually go do it. Eventually, your water or your medication may run low before the 2 weeks are up, and that means a supply run, which is the single riskiest move in this entire plan. Treat it like a combat operation, not a shopping trip. Set a hard time limit before you open the door, 15 or 30 minutes at most, and stick to it no matter what you find or fail to find. Wear whatever protective layers you have, a dust mask or respirator, gloves, and clothing that covers as much skin as possible, because every minute outside adds to your cumulative dose. Move toward the nearest source you already know, a neighbor's pantry, a corner store, your own car if it survived, instead of wandering to explore. Avoid low-lying areas and ditches entirely, since fallout washes into them with rain and can carry 10 times the radiation of the higher ground around it. Stay off the path the wind carried the fallout plume down, and if you are unsure which direction that is, treat every direction downwind as hostile until the radio tells you otherwise. If you own a radiation meter, watch it constantly during the run and back away immediately from any sudden spike. Other survivors are an unpredictable variable in this scenario. Most people cooperate under pressure, but fear and scarcity change behavior fast, so keep your distance from strangers, avoid conflict, and get back inside the moment your time limit hits 0, whether or not you found everything on your list. Hospitals, ambulances, and pharmacies may all be unreachable for weeks after an event like this, which means your first aid kit becomes your entire healthcare system. Treat every wound seriously and immediately, because an infection that would be minor with antibiotics can become dangerous fast without them. Clean the wound, apply antiseptic, cover it with a clean bandage, and change that dressing daily while watching for redness, swelling, or warmth. Anyone on daily medication, insulin, blood pressure pills, heart medication, or inhalers needs at least a month of reserve supply set aside well before anything happens, because running out with no way to resupply is a medical crisis with no clean answer. If someone in your shelter shows signs of radiation exposure, mild nausea and fatigue within a few hours, usually resolves on its own with rest and fluids. Heavier symptoms, persistent vomiting, and exhaustion that does not improve after a day or two point to a higher dose and mean that hydration, rest, and reducing any further exposure are the only tools you have without a functioning hospital nearby. Potassium iodide tablets, if you have them, protect your thyroid specifically from radioactive iodine, but only if taken within hours of exposure, and they do nothing against any other isotope, so treat them as one narrow layer of protection, not a universal shield. If you are sheltering with family, cooperation multiplies everyone's odds, since shared labor, shared supplies, and someone to talk to all reduce the strain of the situation. If a neighbor knocks during those first sealed hours, that decision carries real weight, because every person you let in shares your air, your water, and your food from that point forward. There is no universal right answer here, only trade-offs you should think through before it happens rather than in the middle of a panic. A larger group can share watch duties, pool skills, and support each other emotionally through the hardest stretch. A larger group also burns through water and food faster and adds more uncertainty about who was exposed to what before they arrived. Whatever you decide, make the decision calmly and early rather than reactively at the door, because the calm version of you thinks more clearly than the scared version standing there in the moment. The uncomfortable truth is that almost nobody follows through on any of this before it matters. Emergency preparedness is one of those things everyone agrees is smart in theory and almost nobody actually does in practice, because the cost feels real today and the benefit only feels real on the one day you desperately need it. The gap between knowing what to do and actually having a sealed room, stocked water, and a family that has rehearsed the plan even once is enormous. And it is exactly the gap that determines who is calm during the emergency and who is improvising in a panic. None of this requires a bunker, a fortune, or specialized training. It requires a weekend, a few $100s, and the willingness to take the possibility seriously before the flash on the horizon makes it impossible to prepare any further. Myth 1, you need to outrun the blast. You cannot outrun a shockwave moving at hundreds of miles an hour and trying wastes the only minutes you have to get behind real walls. The move is never running toward the horizon for a better look or a better angle. The move is always getting inside immediately and putting mass between yourself and the outside world. Myth 2. A car is decent shelter in a pinch. A car is a thin metal shell that offers close to zero protection from radiation and can trap you in traffic exactly when you need to be moving fast toward a real building. Treat your car as a last resort, not a shelter. Myth 3. Once the blast is over, the danger is over. The blast is often the smaller threat over the following 2 weeks. Fallout is the real killer. It is invisible. It keeps arriving for hours after the initial flash, and it is exactly why staying sealed inside for the first 2 days matters more than anything else on this list. Believing any one of these 3 myths is often the difference between a survivable event and a fatal one, and all 3 are avoidable with information you now already have. Let us run the sequence one more time, start to finish, because clarity under pressure is what actually saves lives. The moment you see the flash, close your eyes, cover your face, and drop if you are outside. The moment the shaking stops, move to the most interior, most underground room you can reach, away from every window. The moment you are inside, strip your outer layer of clothing at the door and wipe down any exposed skin. The moment that is done, seal every gap in your shelter room with tape, plastic, or wet towels, and shut off anything pulling in outside air. The moment your shelter is sealed, turn on your radio and start listening for official guidance. From there, it is patience, rationed water, rationed food, and shielding built from whatever heavy objects you already own, held for at least 48 hours and realistically closer to 2 weeks depending on your distance from the blast. 5 steps, no bunker, no 15 years of freeze-dried stroganoff. Just the physics working in your favor because you understood it ahead of time instead of learning it in real time. None of what you just learned requires you to believe a nuclear event is likely. It only requires you to accept that the cost of being ready is small and the cost of not being ready on the one day it matters is not something you get to redo. Start with water, because water is the resource you can never improvise your way out of. Add 2 weeks of food you would actually eat. Add a radio, a first aid kit, and enough tape and plastic sheeting to seal 1 room in your home. That is the entire foundation, and most of it is sitting in a hardware store or a grocery aisle right now, not locked behind some expensive bunker fantasy. Do it this weekend while the sky is still calm and the decision still feels optional, because the version of this plan you build in advance is always stronger than the version you try to improvise while the light on the horizon is still fading.